Video log 207. The zombies have taken over, given up all hope of rescue. Survival is minimal. We're not looking good up here, so send help. Welcome back to Perfectly Proofed. Today, we're going to do another sourdough bread. Kind of like a variation on one of my other channels. You're going to need a very well-fed starter. So if you don't have one, I'll list a video in the link below where I'm selling them, or you can always make your own. They're not too terribly hard. As I promised, we're going to pop into my book, check out another page. A couple notes on this recipe. You can do this in like 2 days, but you're going to have a lighter, sour taste to your bread. 3 days would be like a little bit more medium, and then you can I do it sometimes up to 5, and you'll have a really nice sour taste in your bread. So just kind of a few notes before we get started here. You also need a Dutch oven. I haven't done this just like on a cookie sheet or anything, so make sure you have a Dutch oven as well. And other than that, I think we're going to just dive right in here. So first things first, we're going to start with our very well-fed starter. As you can see, Larry's super excited, just bubbling all over. And we're going to start with 115 grams. So and that, my friends, is 116. So I will stick with that. Don't forget to feed your starter after we take from it. I will feed it later. We need 60 grams of lukewarm water. And I usually start with like 45, and then once we go to knead it, if the dough is too dry, we can just add a couple little bit of splashes. So let's start with 45 grams. We're going to break down our starter here a little bit in this water. And lastly, we want to use bread flour if you got it. It makes the bread come out better, but if you don't, AP should be fine. 130 grams flour. Ooh, went a little over. Now we're just going to bring this together in our bowl. We're done with our spatula for the day. Our scale. Sweet. So once we've brought it together, we're going to knead this almost like a white bread. The sourdough is a little just untraditional in the way that we don't have to be super delicate with it in the beginning. So on a floured table, we can flip out our dough. We're just going to knead this until it becomes kind of tacky and smooth. Should take a couple minutes here. Okay, now that it's nice and smooth, a little tacky here, I'm just going to pull it over and kind of like create a ball. Kind of pinch it together. Roll it up just a hair. Right? And what we want to do with this is you're just going to take another clean bowl, spray it down, pop our dough in here. Make sure we spray the top just slightly, so that way if it does touch the plastic, it doesn't pop when we pull it off. And then just cover it with plastic, and we're going to let this proof for about 4-ish hours until it doubles. So we'll come back to it then. Okay, now that our dough is doubled in size, we're going to pop it in the fridge. Minimum 24 hours. We'll still get a sour taste, but if you want it to be more potent, go ahead and shoot for a minimum 48 hours. So let's pop it in there, forget about it for a day or two, and we'll pull it out when we're ready to do the next step. So Here we go. Okay, it's been about 2 days since we popped our dough in the fridge. It's been about 40 hours for me. Um, we want to take this out about an hour before we work this, so that way the dough comes up to room temp and it incorporates into our dough better. So I've pulled it out about 2 hours ago, and it's at room temp now. So what we want to do, we want to flour table, and we want to cut this up into, I don't know, like 8 pieces, 10 pieces, whatever. So it's 4, 10, 12. 12. Just cut it up into small pieces. It'll help incorporate into our next dough that we're making for this. So it's listed below, but we have 570 grams of bread flour in our bowl. I got 2 teaspoons of salt, and I'm just going to go ahead and throw our sponge we made the other day into this little starter. And I'm just going to work this dough into the flour just a touch. I'm not actually like mixing it in yet, but just kind of breaking it down. And then cup and a half of water. And we're going to bring this together in our bowl. Okay, until it just comes together. If you have a KitchenAid, you can do this with a dough hook. I'd say like a larger KitchenAid, like a 6-quart though. With the dough hook on low for about like 4 minutes, and then let it rest for like 5, and then go ahead and mix it some more for about another 4. But I really enjoy kneading this on the table, so I am. So I'm going to flip it out onto our flour table. And I know this is like untraditional for sourdough, because usually, like in my other video, we're really gentle with this. But this, we're just going to knead it together almost like a white bread until it becomes tacky and smooth. And this will take about 8-10 minutes. And then I'll show you what to do next. So now that we got it onto our table, this is how I knead dough. Floured hands always help. And I'm just going to pull it apart, put it on top, and push. Spin. Fold it on top. And then we're going to push down. All right. Spin. Top. Push down. And then if anything falls off on the edge, just go ahead and like put it in the middle. Apart. Push down. And as your hands start to lose the flour, go ahead and just re-flour hands here a little bit. So now that this has come together just a little bit here, I actually like to get rid of most of this flour, because a lot of this dough that's unmixed, we don't want it incorporating into our other dough, right? So I go ahead and I just scrape this off, and then reflour our table, and then just keep on working this. And you'll feel the stages of this. It'll go from slowly ripping on you to being wet. And then now, after a few minutes of working this is starting to become a lot more tacky. I like that white bread, but I am still going to work this a little bit more. Okay, now that it's about where I want it, I'm actually going to shape it how I want it to proof, which is going to be in like a bowl. So a big circle here. So what I'm doing is I'm just pulling it, and then pulling it into the middle, kind of like pinching it together here a little bit. Right, and then I'm just going to use my table, push in, push out, and out. Now, if you want to skip this next step, that's totally fine. If you just want to proof it to bake it, you can fast forward to that. But I'm actually going to hold this for another day, and then reshape just the bowl, and then bake it. So that way it becomes a little bit more of a sour taste. But if you're short on time or just want to get to eating this bread, skip forward. Otherwise, we're going to take a clean bowl and we're going to spray it with nonstick spray wherever it is. There it is. Then we're gonna spray it with nonstick spray. All right. Then I like to spray the top just a little bit, and then we're gonna cover it and pop it in back into our fridge for 24 hours. Like I said, if you want to skip this step, just fast forward to the next step. So there you go. Okay, now that your dough has been sitting in the fridge for a day or two, personally I had mine in there for about 2 days, been working, just let it sit in there. You'll be able to see that it definitely grew quite a bit and then leveled out and then just went into like a retard state, which is what dough does in the refrigerator. So I'm gonna pull it out and let it proof, at least double in size. So go ahead and do that, and then we're gonna reshape it, proof it again, and then bake it. Now, if you skip the last step of putting it into the fridge, that's great. We're just gonna let it double in size instead of putting it in the fridge, and then shape it and proof. So this should take actually quite a bit of time. So I pulled it out right before I go to work, and I'm gonna let it sit out for about like 6 hours before I work it. So let's go ahead and let it double in size. As you can see, it grew quite a bit. And then we'll shape it into our desired shape and bake it off. So there we go. Okay, this has been sitting out for about 6 hours now. Just got back from work. I wouldn't say it's doubled in size, but it's definitely room temp and workable. So I actually want to shape this now and then spend the rest of the night proofing it and then getting ready for our bake. So we want to do this out on a flour table. All right, flour your hands. And since we sprayed the bottom of it, it should just pop right out. So, and it's not, of course. Why would it on film? So, a bowl scraper would probably be the best, but as you can see, I can just like lightly ripping it off, and it's come out fine. So, I'm gonna go ahead and flour my hands. What we want to do is we just want to let the weight of itself pull on this, right? So as I picked it up, right, just kind of shaking it. I like that. So I'm going to go ahead and roll it up, right? And then I'm going to kind of push it down a little bit. Roll it back this way. And from here, I'm going to pinch the bottom and kind of pull over, right? Pull over, pull over, over. And then I'm going to pinch. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to twist it like one time. Just kind of, what we're trying to do is just create a bottom right here for when we want to flip it around. And then we want to roll it. So the way I do this is with both hands, okay? And I use the bottom of my palm and I push in here, but without any flour. So we want the wet dough to grip the table and pull in on itself. So as I push, right, and then I'm going to push the other way, around, 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 and it doesn't need much. So I went about, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. I really don't want this top to rip here. If it does, that's fine. But that rip will show on our final product. So this is perfect. This is what I want. As you can see, the bottom worked into itself since that pinch, and we used. You can feel it's still wet, so that's where it grabs that bottom of that table and definitely pulls in the dough onto itself as where we go each way. All right. Okay, I lied. I worked it just a little bit more. But I definitely don't want this top to rip. See how it's starting to rip right here on the bottom? So I don't want to touch it anymore. So our next step, we want to get a bowl and some parchment paper. It's kind of key to have parchment paper here. If you don't, it's going to be really difficult to pull this out into our Dutch oven, right? So parchment paper in a bowl. I use this one just because I like it. You can use any bowl. We're going to go ahead and pop this into our bowl. And then we're going to plastic wrap the top. All right. Okay, and then we're just going to keep this in a warm spot until a little over doubles. So it should take a few hours. You can boil a pot of water and put it inside your oven with the oven off, so it creates a little proofer in there, and it'll help your dough move along, or just wherever a warm spot in your house is. So I'll meet you back when it's ready to be baked. Okay, it's been about 2-ish hours for me. I left mine in the oven with some boiling water, and it's a little over doubled in size here, as we can see. That looks fancy. So what we want to do now is we want to preheat our oven to 500 degrees with our Dutch oven in our oven, right? So that way, when we place our dough into our Dutch oven, it will start cooking as soon as we pop it into the oven, versus if we leave this cold and then put our dough into there and then put this into the oven at temp, it's going to take quite a while to bring up. So I'm going to pop this into my oven, turn my oven on to 500 degrees, and then we're on to our next step. So there we go. Something else I've failed to mention, you want to put like a little pan like that or a cookie sheet underneath. That way it holds our ice and creates steam when we're baking our bread, right? So we want that up to temp when we throw everything else in there. So go ahead and just throw that in there with your Dutch oven as it's heating up. Okay, now that our oven has reached 500, I let it sit there for a couple minutes so that way the Dutch oven really comes up to temp. So as we're handling this, let's make sure we're careful, not burn ourselves. All right. So how we're going to do this, we're going to pick it up by, make sure we touch this with because it's hot. Pick it up by our parchment paper. All right. Up and in. We're going to put our lid back on. Let's just toss it right back in the oven. Start baking it. So this is going to bake at 480 for 20 minutes, and then we're going to take the lid off, and then it's going to need about 30 to 50, kind of depends on the oven. I'll let you know when mine's done and how much it took. So don't forget to throw some ice in the tin that you threw underneath, and I'm going to do that now and bump it down to 480 for 20 minutes. So ice in the thingamabob. All right. Or water. It will help create steam, which will give it a really good crumb on our finished product. So Now we wait. Okay, now that our 20 minutes are up, we're gonna take our lid off and then we're gonna drop our oven down to 450. Oh yeah, look at that. That looks so good. So good. Okay, back in. 450, I'm gonna start with at least 20-ish minutes, but really I think it's gonna be like 30 or 40. Bake 450. Timer. Yeah. Okay, so mine took about 25 minutes at 450, and this looks great. The best way that I find to find out if this is done, so we flip it over, right, and we just knock on it. So hear that? It sounds hollow to me. So careful, this thing's still super hot. Look at that. You should be really proud of yourself for this. Look, we went from our starter like 4 or 5 days ago, and we made bread out of it. So if you made this or have any questions or whatnot, ow, it's still hot. You should wait like at least an hour to cut into this and let it cool down. But yeah, if you like this, if you made it, subscribe. Let me know how it turned out. I will catch you on the next one. This is something else I want to sneak in there real quick. Every baker in the industry puts pot holders on hot things. If you are not the only person in your kitchen, put something like a pan holder on top of something hot. So someone else that walks in knows not to pick it up. I can't tell you how many times I walked into a damn kitchen and somebody didn't put a damn pot holder on a hot sheet pan and I almost stabbed them. So, pot holder.